If only they knew. The hub for young business minds.
Yes, people, it's Ted Lawler, and welcome back to another episode of the If Only They Knew podcast. Today, we're joined by Lucy Hitchcock, founder of Sassy Digital and Partner in Wine. Lucy speaks about the best ways to build a community online, how to go viral, appearing on TV, and so much more. So if you want to take your brand to the next level, this is the podcast for you.
My name is Lucy Hitchcock. I am a wine lover and founder of two businesses. I am the founder of Sassy Digital, which is a no-nonsense digital marketing, branding and web design agency for all businesses. And I'm also the founder of Partner in Wine, which is a range of insulated wine bottles, tumblers and accessories, with the aim of trying to make wine a little bit fun again.
Perfect. And let's get straight into it. Why did you want to become an entrepreneur, or did you even want to become an entrepreneur to begin with, or was it something you stumbled across?
So there's a phrase that I quite like called accidental entrepreneur. So I left my full-time job when I was 23 years old. The corporate life was not for me, mainly because I personally don't like being told what to do. And there was a lot of that going on, not in a kind of menial sense, but a lot of, it was very kind of male dominated environment, and the way that it kind of worked just was not for me. So yeah, I left my job when I was 23 years old, and I started working with a food blogger, kind of helping her with marketing, social media, website stuff on the side. And I was working for her part-time. And so the other days of the week, I was kind of building up my client base to help other smaller businesses with their social media marketing. Yeah. So then I had too many clients to work with her, the food blogger, who needed someone full-time really. And then kind of Sassy Digital, that's how it came about. So I never left my job thinking I'm starting a agency, I'm starting a business, that is what I'm going to do. I have the aim of turning over X amount of money, blah, blah, blah. That was never really the aim. The aim was I left my job to do something that I liked and that I felt a kind of affinity to, and I felt that I could be really good at. And then it kind of turned into a business from there.
Yeah. So is that I guess that's how you knew, because that is such a hard thing to decide, isn't it? Like, okay, this is the time to risk it all, because it's such a big risk getting rid of like a stable monthly wage and a secure job to do your own thing. That, I guess that's how you knew. But for everyone listening, how do you think you should sort of analyze and get to that decision of when you should leave a job? Like, do you think there's certain things? Because it seems for you, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like the passion and the fact that you was actually bringing in the work anyway and you was enjoying it. But do you think there's any other elements you can decide to leave your job with?
Really interesting you should ask that, actually, because I was listening to a podcast this morning where the founder of Gymshark was talking about this. And I don't know if you knew this, but he actually was working in Pizza Hut while Gymshark was still in its early days, but turning over hundreds of thousands of pounds. So he still had a part-time job so that he could reinvest all of his money from his business back into the company, while still making a living, paying the bills and all of that. So I don't think it's a sensible idea to quit your job unless you have some form of a part-time job or, a retainer coming in that's going to cover those bills. I was very fortunate at the time. I was living at home with my parents. So it wasn't, while it was a risk, it wasn't huge. It wasn't massively risky because I still had a roof over my head and, I was very privileged in that way. And my parents just said, try it for a year. If it's not for you, you can go and find another job. And, that was kind of for me about experimenting with what I actually wanted to do with my career. And it turned out that actually, I really enjoyed the freedom. Don't get me wrong, it's been a very, very hard at times. And, there's been multiple times, especially in the early years, where I was like, screw this, I'm done. I'm going to go and find a full-time job. I can't deal with the stresses anymore. So I think if I could impart any piece of advice, it would just be, if you can, make sure if you can afford to take the risk, in terms of having all your ducks in a row, whether that's having a part-time job on the side or going, okay, I've got enough money in my savings to kind of help me, tie me over for 6 to 12 months, then you know, maybe that's a risk that you're willing to take. But you know, quitting your job on a whim because you don't like your job and then trying to start a business where you have no money incoming is obviously just not a very sensible idea.
No, definitely not. And I think you're right in what you're saying. Like, being young is almost like the perfect situation and almost the perfect excuse to go and try these things and sort of get out there. And like you said, if it didn't work, you sort of had those safety nets to sort of fall into. Even though that's not the best situation, at least it's better than most. Because I know people that are 40, 50 trying to start a business and they're like, oh, I can't because I've got kids, I've got this, I've got that. And it's like, oh, that just sends shivers down my spine, because I can't imagine having that much responsibility because of their age. Like, because like you said, like, I still live at home as well, so I can afford to risk things. So I think being young is the best time to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And look, I know people who are 40, 50 who've started businesses, but again, you know, as you say, if you have those responsibilities, you know, you've got a mortgage, you have a partner, you have kids, whatever it is, you know, maybe they're too far down the line to be able to do that sort of thing. But I don't know. It's down to personal circumstance at the end of the day. And, you know, I'm only giving advice based on my experience. But, you know, down to personal circumstances, I think you would probably know whether the risk is for you or not.
Yeah. And like you said before, like you was working and getting experience in what you wanted to do. Is that right? So you was building up that experience before you left to do it for yourself. How important is that, getting the experience? Because I've had people on that are like, they produce content, so they spent loads of years working as like a runner for media companies and getting that experience just to get a little flavor of what the world's like and just being in that environment. I think that's so important, isn't it?
Well, so where I was working before, my first job that I got made redundant from, I was working in social media, but previous to that, you know, at university, I'd been the online digital editor of our university magazine. So I was running the social media for that. I was learning how to use WordPress. I'd coded my MySpace page before. So like, wow. Even outside of work, you know, I knew how to code websites. You know, that was a kind of side experience. And then actually how that translates in the real world, when you go and get a job, you never end up actually doing the things that you want to do. You know, especially if you're like a novice coder like me. But I did get experience, you know, running someone else's social media account. I did get experience in website design, like, you know, redesigning massive corporate websites for FTSE 100 companies and learning more about the kind of like legal requirements, and all of these things kind of help me to do what I do today for other people. So absolutely, you know, experience is important, but equally I do always say to people, if you're in a job that you dislike or you're in a job that you hate, there's no reason why you can't. It's never too late to change your sort of career path if you are so driven and interested in a particular subject or topic or whatever it happens to be. There's so many things that you can do on the side. It's just whether or not you have the time and the motivation to actually go and do those things. Yeah. So, you know, for example, taking an online course in marketing, there's so many different ones you can do. Facebook have them free, Google have them free, you know, there's so many different things you can do. You know, even just following Instagram pages, or, you know, that offer free advice, or starting up your own Instagram to talk about your passion for social media and, you know, give people tips and advice and build up an audience that way before you end up leaving your job, you know? Yeah. Anyone who gives advice on social media, all you have to understand is how to market, and being a digital marketeer, you know, that no one's qualified to tell anyone else about social media, you know, unless you're like the head of Instagram or whatever, because you actually know the facts. Yeah. So it's one of those things. I do think experience is important, but it's not essential. And I'm always very careful when I talk about things like that, because I do honestly believe that, you know, if you turn 60 years old and you suddenly decide that you want to become a window dresser for Harvey Nicks, you know, and you've been an accountant all your life, if you kind of have that creative flame and you really want to go all out and just try and do something like that, there's no reason why you can't. Yeah. As long as you have that underlying motivation to actually go and make it happen.
Yeah, you're speaking about there, sort of like working up to things. If you think you want to do something and it's a radical change, you can sort of work your way up to it and sort of set your eyes on it. But one thing that seems to have been quite random was your sort of introduction to your latest project, Partner in Wine, because if I'm right, it came about from lockdown, and you
Yes.
just with a mate, and then you come up with the idea. Is that right? Tell us more about that. I think that's so interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, it may seem slightly random, but the way that I'll describe it will give it a lot more context. So people kind of look at Partner in Wine and go, that's an overnight success. That is amazing. She's only been running for a year and a half and she's already stocked in Selfridges after 7 months. She's viral on TikTok. She's in Oliver Bonus. We're about to be stocked in 2 other places like that. And the kind of brand awareness is so, it's a lot, and people tend to know what it is and who I am and all of that sort of stuff. But for me, it's not overnight, because I left my job at 23. I built up all this knowledge around branding, e-com, marketing from helping other people. Partner in Wine is my greatest case study. That's the way that I kind of tend to talk about it in, if I've got my Sassy digital hat on, because people kind of don't understand, how can you run 2 businesses, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, so I mean, as the story goes, I'll give you a short version, because if I tell you the long version, it will go on for like 15 minutes. But basically, after lockdown 1, I went for a socially distanced drink in the park with my friend. I couldn't keep my wine cool. And so I basically invented this insulated wine bottle and tumblers that holds a full bottle of wine, keeps cool for up to 24 hours and warm for up to 12. And kind of the aim is to, not take your rubbish out with you, but also keep your wine cold. And also, if you follow us on social media, it's all about trying to make wine less stuffy, more accessible, for the average kind of casual wine drinker like myself. Before I embarked on this project, I would just go to the shop and pick up the same old bottle of wine every single time. And, I didn't really know much about wine. Now I've done my WSET level 2, so I know a little bit more about it. And I'm trying to, I know a lot of other people my age are kind of quite keen to know about it without sounding like a wanker, excuse my French. But yeah, it's very much a kind of, when you think about wine and people that know about wine, I always think about like kind of, white, older male kind of sat at a mahogany desk, and, like an old boys club, when actually, everyone can learn to love wine. Everyone can have knowledge about wine. You don't have to feel like an arsehole just because you're interested in it. And so it's kind of trying to change that perception. So, it's not all about the insulated wine bottles. Obviously they sell well, and, I love doing it, but it's also the fun part for me is kind of trying to bring that level of education back in a way that feels accessible to other people.
And it sounds like, what you're saying there, almost it's looking at your social media and the people that interact with you and the way they interact with you. It's like you are tapping into that culture that already existed and sort of homing it in and bringing it in, so everyone's sort of interacting with each other. Is that something you sort of realize, the way that you're sort of building a little community of its own, isn't it, on social media, the way people interact, and you've got all those like nice friendly people commenting on your stuff? Is that something you're aware of?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, a lot of marketeers talk about building a community, and then you go, okay, well, how do you actually build a community? How do you do that? Let's talk about that. You can't just keep talking into the abyss and hoping someone's going to listen. You've got to do something a little bit different. You've got to think outside of the box. And because I am a marketeer and I know a lot about what people do and how people follow trends and stuff, obviously I'm able to kind of try and do that to the best of my ability. And obviously it's paid off and it works, but there's a lot of time and effort that goes into that. It's not an easy thing to do, but yeah, I do have a kind of loyal following, and people that comment and message and tag us all the time and that sort of thing. And it's it's really lovely, and people tune into my live wine tastings every month and actually join in with it, which feels quite nice as well. Even if there's only like 10 to 20 people, it's still like a nice kind of sociable thing to do, I think.
So how have you actually done that then? How have you built, like you said, it's quite an intricate thing to be able to do. It's easy enough to say, oh, we'll create this brand and we'll create a community. But like you said, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes and little tiny nuances. So what, if you can, what are some of those things that have helped you to build that community? Because from an outsider's view, it looks like the transparency and the honesty. And I think TikTok's probably helped with that, isn't it? It's like the perfect platform for that communication.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, to be honest with you, the overarching thing that I think helps build a community is having someone as the face of the brand. And you'll notice that, massive companies, they just can't do it. And, you may have seen press articles where I've said being small is cool. And, people have messaged me and gone, oh my gosh, I watched your video on the BBC and I really kind of resonated with it. And it really gave me a bit of a kick up the bum. And I feel better in my choices now, leaving my job and running a small business, because I realized that, actually Barclays can't, like massive companies like Google and whatever, they don't have a face to the brand. I mean, Facebook probably does with Mark Zuckerberg, and they try and do those things. So, but they're a social media company. Massive companies don't have faces to their brand, or people that the average customer can actually resonate with. Whereas I'm the face of my brand, and people like, I don't want to jump the gun, but I think people like me. But I think I'm very much how I am in real life online. There's nothing, there's no fakeness there. And, I kind of just react how I would react in normal life. And I don't like making videos, for example, if I'm opening something for the first time, but I'm not. Like, I'll open things for the first time on social media so that people can actually see that genuine reaction. So if you can and you want to build a community, I would say definitely trying to be the face of your brand is important. I know it's difficult. People don't like putting their face on social media, or they worry about how they'll be perceived, and or people will make fun of them, or whatever it happens to be. But I do genuinely think if you can get the courage to put your face online and out there, it will really help push you forward. And it's really the only reason why Partner in Wine has done so well, in my personal opinion. I mean, amongst, the other concoction of ingredients in the Partner in Wine, excuse me, in the grand Partner in Wine recipe for success, that is one of the major contributors to it, I think.
Yeah. And how on a practical level, how did you actually sort of get started with the business? Because we know what the business is, we know how you sort of come up with the idea, but how did you go from, okay, this could work, to actually getting it done and getting started? Because I read somewhere you started with like a really low budget. Is that right?
Yeah, so I started with £3,000 for my personal savings. Yeah. I basically I built the website myself, did the branding, or I say myself, in-house at Sassy. And that kind of helped fund Partner in Wine as like a little fun side project. And then, really quite quickly, it became very much more than a side project, and it became a kind of beast of its own. But I did have a low budget, and I don't want to say I bootstrapped, because I didn't. I did everything in the order that I thought it should be done, based off my past experiences with other businesses, and, giving people advice on things that they should and shouldn't do, and people basically not taking my advice and going, actually, okay, if they would have taken my advice, what would have happened? Yeah. So I basically look, people go, how do you start a business? Google is there for a reason. You just need to have the motivation, again, to put the time in to do it. No one's going to tell you how to do it yourself. And actually, you'll feel more accomplished if you do it yourself. I spent a lot of time on Google. I spent a lot of time doing competitor analysis, research, market research, and finding a manufacturer was actually the easiest part, to be honest with you. And at the time, my manufacturer, because my products are made in China, I always think I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. But obviously, because of coronavirus, all the factories over there weren't doing huge amounts of orders for other countries, because everything was kind of on hold, because, people weren't sure where they stood. Lots of massive retailers were actually cancelling orders or putting things on hold. Whereas I was like, no, I want to order a small amount. The price was good. They helped me develop it. And within a few months, came together really quite quickly. But I do always caveat that with, that is not a normal thing to do. You know, people don't do that. It was a lot of work. You know, I was up for like 6 months between 6 a.m. and 1 a.m. in the morning.
Wow.
You know, packing boxes before and after my day job. It wasn't an easy feat by any means. And I think people look at it and go, oh, you know, such a nice life. It looks so easy for her to do that. But actually, you know, there was a lot of late nights and tears and hair pulling and, you know, whatever. But no, I also like to say that because I like to remind myself of it, because now it does feel easier for me. And so actually the reason I'm saying that is because if anyone's having a shit time at the moment, just think about the end goal and think where you want to be. And in, you know, I don't know, 6 months, a year's time, you'll look back and go, oh my gosh, you know, I'm so glad I did all of that, because it made me feel really lucky now how easy it feels. Obviously not every day is easy, but it feels like a lot less hard work than it did in the beginning, for sure.
I'm glad you said that about sort of looking into the future and almost at the end result, the end package, and then sort of working backwards, because it seems, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you are quite a visionary in terms of, you know what you want, you know what the end result looks like, and for you it's quite simple. You just work backwards and then sort of chunk up or chunk down, however you want to do it, and get that, because you've sort of looked into the future and put that on TikTok, haven't you? Like you said, you wanted to be in Selfridges, Oliver Bonus, and then there's other retailers you said, and I think you've probably achieved that, and so you're doing really well and you're putting it out there. So are you a visionary?
I'm a subconscious manifester. I basically have this thing, and I tell the story a lot, but with the Selfridges thing, as soon as I saw the packaging for my product, I looked in it and I looked at my dad and I said, this is going to be in Selfridges. And he went, I have no doubt that it will be. And we got 7 months in, and this was literally a couple of days before I went viral on TikTok for the first time. Went for a walk with my brother and he said, Lucy, look, I really feel like you've got something good here. Like, you're doing really well. You know, I was doing 5-figure months before I went viral on TikTok, you know. So you're doing really well. And I was feeling good. I was in a fulfillment center. I was in a good place. And I was kind of, you know, feeling very positive and like, you know, how can things get better from here? And he said, I think you should get in touch with Selfridges. And I said, no, they will get in touch with me when the time is right. They will come knocking. And literally 3 days later, went viral on TikTok, and they emailed me on the same day.
Wow.
And I talked about it prior to that in podcasts. I'd said, like, I want to be stocked in Selfridges. I'm going to be stocked in Selfridges. You know, that's, you know, putting it out into the universe. I'm a subconscious manifester in the way that I guess there's a difference between being cocky and manifesting things, but like, I am very much set on, like, I'm going to be here, but I'm not going to be here. So say, for example, like at the moment, I'm in Selfridges and Oliver Bonus, but I'm not accepting like gift shops to stock my products because I'm not quite there yet. Like I don't know if that's the route that I want to go down. So if I say I want to be stocked in all of the UK's best department stores, then that's what's going to happen one way or another. I'm going to get there before I do anything else. But manifesting subconsciously is more about going, this is what I want to do. I know I'm going to do it. How am I going to get there? And that's that's the way that I see it, not necessarily being a visionary, but actually, as you say, thinking this is the end goal. How am I going to get there? You can't just manifest something and expect it to magically appear in your lap. It's just not going to happen. You've got to take certain steps to get there. And I don't know, for me, part of the Selfridges journey was growing that social media following, having the right packaging, the right branding, the whole branding package everywhere, websites, social media, actually, you know, the packaging and what it arrives in, all of that stuff is super important. So, you know, it's not necessarily thinking in terms of like business decision, how you're going to get there. It is to do with like the whole thing, the marketing, the branding, everything. So yeah.
What are some of the other things then that you're looking to manifest or sort of you're looking to happen soon? Is there any other things you're like, right, I know this is going to happen soon, it's just a matter of time?
Yeah, I'm going global.
That's it. Just smashed it. There was another example as well. I'm sure you said you wanted to make 1 million or something like this. You wanted to make 1 million.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. So this year the goal is to make 1 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, to turn over 1 million.
And are you on track, or do you think even if you're not on track, you think it's going to happen anyway, or how's it looking?
It's looking all right. We've got lots of wholesale opportunities. There's several things that need to happen in order to get there, but I'm working towards those things. So as you say, like, I may not actually, you know, if you looked at my finances right now, you'd be like, she's delusional. I actually genuinely do think we'll get there.
yeah, that's it. And that's the thing though, isn't it? Like, no matter what your goal is, you have to have faith in it and the belief as well. But I think most importantly, the faith that it will happen, because if you don't, there's sort of no point, is there? Like, if you're setting goals and you're thinking, oh, that's not going to happen, there's almost no point setting goals and even getting started, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think I'm a very ambitious person, and I know people say your goals have to be realistic, but I don't see why there's any reason why I couldn't make 1 million. Yeah. You know, it's just the different points that you have to reach in order to get there that haven't actually happened yet, but I don't think they won't happen. I think they will happen, and I think I will get there. It's just I think you have to have that inner belief. And actually, you know, I've not always had that confidence. You know, at school, I wasn't like, I was in the bottom set for everything. Didn't really have that many friends. Well, I did, but like I didn't, you know, I wasn't kind of in a popular group or whatever. I kind of just like did what I had to do to get by. And so I think that confidence for me came from all of those years previous to Partner in Wine, running Sassy, and actually getting to a point where I felt comfortable enough to set my own boundaries in terms of things that I will and won't do. Whereas when you first start a business, you may tend to take everything on, even if it's not something that you're particularly interested in. So yeah, it's an interesting one. And someone did actually DM me on Instagram the other day saying, how did you get to that confidence level? And it is a real journey, but it's one of those things that I think you have to kind of work on and be quite self-aware about.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, like you said before, like there is a fine line between confidence and cockiness, but at the same time, there's nothing wrong with cockiness either. Like, because sometimes I say things and like to my mum or something, and she's like, "Oh, you're so cocky," and it's like, no, what you said, like I'm just self-confident. I know what's possible and I know where I am and I know sort of how to bridge that gap, isn't it? It's just about self-confidence. But I wanted to save this until towards the end of the podcast. You mentioned obviously you went viral on TikTok, but we haven't actually spoken too much about it. So how did that happen? And like you said, you were doing really well and seeing success before you went viral. So how did it feel to then have that extra layer of going viral on TikTok, and what video was it?
Well, I'm still riding on the coattails of that viral video. So still feeling great. And actually, it's nearly, I think I went viral on 3rd of March. So we're nearly coming around a year now. And it still feels like it was yesterday. Honestly, it's absolutely mental. But how did it feel? It was honestly, I was sat at this desk that I'm sat at now, shaking all day. And I was like, I honestly didn't know what to do with myself. But I posted a video that basically explained, you know, how I started the business, where I was at now. And at the end, it says, you know, if there's something you want to do it now, because you never know where you might be in 7 months' time. And I think some people like that kind of motivational chat on TikTok, but equally, I think it's a nice story to come out of lockdown, and it's a true story. Whereas, you know, a lot of people spend a lot of time curating their story for marketing purposes. And I'm like, but what's your actual story? You know, what is the actual story behind what it is that you're doing? Why did you do it? Like, why did you actually do it? Not because there wasn't anything else like it on the market. You know, there's always a different answer to that. But I think it was one of those things that I think a lot of people just found very inspirational, motivational. And then as soon as it went viral, all the people that, you know, the new followers and whatnot were like, ever since then, of just every single moment of the journey that, you know, Stockton Selfridges, everyone was like, yes, I'm so proud of you. I don't know you, but I'm proud of you. Oliver Bonus, BBC, you know, it's one of those strange things that even with like the BBC thing, so I was on, not Diary of a CEO, that's a podcast, CEO Secrets on the BBC, actually weirdly, the week after Stephen Bartlett was on there, and I was like,
oh, wow.
proud of me. And you know, people that didn't know me were reposting and like, yes, Lucy. And I'm like, I don't know you. My neighbour's like saying to my dad, my parents' neighbour 2 doors down that I don't know, it's like, oh, I love BBC CEO Secrets. I saw your daughter was on there the other day. And I'm like, what is happening? This is just so weird. But yeah, people love the story. And I think if you can kind of convey your story and take people on the journey with you, just going back to your point earlier about building a community, people do really feel like it's their success too. And I think that's such a nice thing to be able to share with people, to kind of bring that level of joy into their life where perhaps, you know, you turn on the news and you feel a little bit depressed.
Yeah. And that's it, isn't it? Like, showing the product isn't enough anymore, I don't think, in my opinion anyway. It's all the ingredients that you said during this podcast, I think, really add something to the brand and to your social media presence, because I do it a lot. I just post, I've got a manifestation journal. I just post the journal sometimes. Like, it's a nice photo, but it doesn't offer anything. And every time I do it, I think, oh, I need to spend more time in actually giving something, whether that's just entertainment, value, whatever it is. I feel like you need to give, don't you?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think it's nice to be able to share those things with people. I mean, I don't share any of my personal life online, but you know, if I can convince someone through a video, a motivational video, that they've seen my story, if I can convince someone who is about to quit their business and go back to a full-time job to continue that little bit more, then my work here is done, as they say.
Yeah. Last few things then. Obviously you mentioned going viral, and you're still sort of riding that wave, because it's such a big wave. So like, you are going to be able to ride it for so long and sort of make the most of it. Let's talk about some of the success then from that. So your sales went like crazy, even crazier than before or after the video. You're on BBC, you're in The Sun, you're in so many media platforms. And you were also on This Morning, weren't you? How did that come about, and how did that make you feel? Because I saw your post, and they got the name wrong, didn't they?
So we've been on This Morning twice, and both times. So the first time they and by the way, I actually don't think any bad press is, what do they say? Any press is good press or something, whatever the saying is. They got the name wrong, but we did have a lot of traffic from it, a lot of sales from it, so that was great. The second time I didn't realize, but Phil threw a little bit of shade at me. Well, shade at the brand. He was like, why would you put it in there when you can just take a box of wine to the park? And I was like, what is he on about? Ridiculous. Anyway, did a bit of digging. Turns out he has his own boxed wine. So what did I do? I went and used that experience and put it on TikTok, and it went like blew up and went nuts. So all of these things are like a great, and you know, I mean, you mentioned The Sun. The Sun did not interview me, by the way. That article is completely I don't want to say it's fabricated, but they've taken things that I've said on TikTok and turned it into an interview. But you know, I had a lot of sales that day, so like I can't complain. So it's it's an interesting one, but a lot of press that's come about has literally just been off the back of this viral video. You know, I've had people that have supported me from earlier on, like Good Housekeeping, Heat magazine. I've got some great relationships with journalists who kind of follow along on social media and love the story too. And you know, journalists from the Mail Online, where they've basically told my story. It's not even about Partner in Wine, it's about me personally twice. So all of that kind of came off the back of it. That obviously the stockist came off the back of it. And kind of further to that, I've got a great relationship with the team at TikTok as well. I went to their offices yesterday. It's kind of annoying, actually. I'm not even allowed to talk about why I went there, and no one will ever find out, unfortunately. But I had some very interesting conversations with the team there. And you know, before Christmas, we produced 200 co-branded bottles for TikTok, and you know, they've just been absolutely fantastic. They're so supportive. You know, they paid the full price almost immediately as soon as I kind of sent over the invoice, and you know, they're very, very happy to kind of support smaller businesses in that way. And so yeah, I've built some really great kind of relationships, both business and friendly now, with a lot of different people, which I think is really nice as well. So kind of feels, I mean, even though I have a team, it feels a little less, it feels like my own little business community.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And am I right? Just last thing on sort of the attention you received after. I'm sure I heard you on the Flow Create podcast. You said you got offered Dragon's Den and you declined it. Is that right?
Yeah, funnily enough, actually, the day after I recorded that podcast, I got another email from Dragon's Den.
Oh, wow.
So they asked me to apply.
Yeah.
So they've asked me to apply twice, and I've decided not to do it because the only reason I would be going on there would be for a PR push. And I think it couldn't go one of two ways, but I think, the way that TV is edited, it's not that I think I'm above Dragon's Den. I just think that the way that I've personally curated my brand and the identity and put myself out there, I think people may know it enough already to be like, why is she going on Dragon's Den?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to, it was an opportunity that I could have done, but I spent a long time deliberating around it, and I just have decided it's not really for me.
Yeah, no, that's understandable because like you said, it would be good, but at the same time, you could just say something wrong, or the dragons could say something wrong, and it would just sort of jumble things up a bit. But what is next for you then? Last thing. What's next for you? You've got so much going on. You're smashing it. What's next?
So we have lots of new products coming out this year. We have something completely new that no one has seen before. As an attempt to stop people copying my business idea, which has happened, by the way, many times over since that viral video. We're launching our coffee cups again on Friday, and we've got some other kind of interesting things coming out, and also a collaboration, which I won't talk too much about. Well, I won't talk about at all. You can just have that. But yeah, a collaboration, which is something that I've wanted to do for ages, and it's with someone that I know and love their work a lot. So nice. Yeah, no, it's gonna be a good year. I can feel it in my bones.
Yeah, nice. And hard hitting question then. What do you want your legacy to be on a personal level?
On a personal level, so like not business related.
Unless it falls into the business world, but yeah, like what do you, as Lucy, what do you want to leave behind?
Do you know what I really believe? And this is one of the reasons why I left my job, because I didn't like the way that people spoke to me. And I think that as a woman and as a businesswoman, there tends to be this very old school kind of feeling that, businesswomen are bossy, and they have to kind of take on those male traits to get to the top of the boardroom and climb to the top of the ladder, and it doesn't matter what it takes to get to the top. And there's this saying, I think, that people will what is it? It's like people will forget. Oh, people will forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I really believe that in my core, like, I'm just a nice person. Like, I want to help as many people as I can in my life, whether that's, my personal relationships or my professional relationships. And that's why I'm continuing with Sassy Digital, because I want to help small business owners get to where I am, if that's where they want to be. And so that is one of my kind of greatest, that will be one of my greatest goals, in life. And if I succeed at that, then I will die a happy woman. So I think that's probably what my answer would be.
No, I love that. And final thing, I know I said final about 100 times. Final thing, this show is called If Only They Knew. So what is one thing you wish you knew before you started all of this, when you was younger in your career?
I feel like people have asked me this before, and I change my answer every time. If only they knew. I would say, and I'm going to say this because I feel like my younger self was not massively confident, both personally and like career-wise. I would have loved my younger self to look at my older self and go, wow, like she is my role model.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess if only I knew how confident I would have been now, maybe I would have tried a little bit harder to find that confidence earlier. But again, you know, I guess it's just a journey to get to where I am now in terms of how I've kind of built that confidence up. But yeah, for anyone who struggles with their confidence levels, I think, as I said earlier, trying to get that level of self-awareness and, you know, reading books, listening to podcasts, watching other people, and then actually going to put that into practice, whether that's, you know, asking for someone's phone number or speaking to someone in a coffee shop just randomly if you don't like talking to strangers. I don't know, just trying to like push yourself outside of your comfort zone every single day is something that's really important. And, you know, in my gut, if I feel scared to do something, I almost like get this sick, like, I really don't want to do it, but also like, I'm going to do it because, you know I'm going to feel this like massive high afterwards. And it's almost that level of understanding that you feel scared, but just going to do it anyway.
Yeah, that's one of my things as well. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for the advice and telling your story. I really appreciate it. The floor is now yours. If you've got a final message or you want to tell everyone where to find out more about yourself and the company, please let them know now.
Oh, thank you. So you can find me, this is going to be a very long one. I say this at the end of every podcast. So you can find me on Instagram at Lucy Hitchcock _. You can find Sassy Digital at Sassy Digital, Partner in Wine at Partner in Wine UK, both on Instagram and TikTok. And all of our kind of contact details and whatnot are on there. I do also have a podcast. I'm not recording at the moment because I've got a lot on my plate, but it is at the Winging It podcast. If you do want to find out a little bit more about how I started both of my businesses and hear from some other people who know what they're talking about too.
Lovely. I'll leave all the links and that below and all the information in the description box. Lucy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.